Alright, so we're finally getting back into doing some of the Space Marine modelling. I know it's been a while, but here we are, we're back into it. And as you all probably know, we're going to be covering the skull ornament modelling today. And just one thing before we hop into the modelling, I just want to show you something here you wouldn't normally see. So if you get to the end of this tutorial and the result isn't exactly the way you thought it would be, or you're not happy with it, that's completely okay. As you can see here, this was an attempt that I did last week trying to formulate the tutorial, and then these are ideation stages throughout the course of today. So it takes me time as well. I don't get it right on my first attempt, but you just wouldn't normally see that, so I just wanted to show you all, it's like, hey, it's all good. If it doesn't work out perfectly on your first attempt, just give it another try, take a break from it, come back to it later. And I promise you will get it within time. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and I'm just going to bring the 3D cursor into just roughly the middle of the brow here, so just clicking there. And then just to make sure it is in the center, I'm just going to change the view 3D location to 0 on the x-axis just to make sure it's centered. I'm going to Shift A, bring in a circle, and just make sure that's at 32 verts, cool. I'm going to go ahead, rotate X 90 degrees, and then what I want to do is we'll just come down to here, so our snapping base, set it to face and align to rotation. And with that, I'm just going to press G, and then Y and hold down Control, and that's just going to snap the circle to match the same orientation of the front part of the helmet here. And you'll see why this is handy in a second, because we're going to use a shrink wrap. And I'm just going to scale this down. I'm just looking at the top of the skull here, and I'm just getting the profile of the circle to roughly match up with the skull. So that's pretty close. And then what we can do is we can bring in a modifier, so we can get a shrink wrap for the circle here. And we can just use the eyedropper to set the target to be the helmet. And that's sort of adjusted the shape just a little bit, so I might just push this up on the X a bit, just so that the curvature of the circle is matching up with the skull better. Just going to apply that first shrink wrap, and then it might seem counterintuitive, but we'll bring in a second shrink wrap. And the only reason we're applying the first one is because now the shape is actually baked into our circle. So let's go into edit mode, and let's just adjust some of the positions of the verts. I'm just going to make the shrink wrap applied to the verts in edit mode, so I'm just going to go ahead, just moving these along the x-axis, nothing fancy here. The shrink wrap will do a lot of the heavy lifting for us, fortunately. So just move all these ones down. And then this final one here, I'm just going to use G, and once again, shrink wrap's going to snap it to our helmet, and I'm just going to put it roughly into the corner there. And we only need to work with half the mesh, so I'm just going to delete that half, and I'm just going to delete these bottom sets of verts, and just pull in a mirror modifier, put it to the top of the stack, and enable clipping as always. And then just to help sort of smooth some things out here, I'm just going to select everything, go space, and relax. My two favourite operations, as you'd all be aware. So, let's just go and continue to build out just the rough outline of the skull here. So I'm just going to use E to extrude. So let's bring that to that point. And here. Somewhere around the bottom. And I'm not worried about the curvature at the moment. We'll address that in just a second. We just want to keep everything very simple at the moment. Just in the middle there. And this one I'm going to actually extend down just a little bit beyond the teeth. And then extrude into the middle. Just give a bit of curvature at the bottom there. Cool, so now we can go ahead and we can address some of the parts that have got bevels. So I'm just going to use Control Shift and B to bevel the vertice. And we're just going to do it with two segments. So that will produce 3 verts for us, so that's one segment there. This is 2 segments. I'm going to do that, and then I might just adjust the position of this one, just bring it down a bit. And Control Shift and B, do a bevel there. And this one here, I might just Control R to add in an extra vert. And just pull that out a bit, and then Control Shift and B for this one here. Just going to use C for my circle select, and I'm just going to bring that back in just to match the reference a little bit better. Cool, so there we go. We've got the basic outline of the skull, and we've got some very rudimentary topology going for us. Awesome. So the next thing I want to do is, let's work with the eyes. Let's go ahead, bring in another circle, and we'll just change the vert count to 16, and this is going to be used for the eyes. So let's go ahead, rotate that 90 degrees around the X. I'm just going to scale this in a bit. And I'm just going to roughly position it so that the left-hand side of the circle is aligned with the socket, or the eye socket of the skull here. And I'm just going to bring it to the side view, and I'm just going to bring this out on the Y just until it's roughly matching up, just with the innermost part of the eye socket there as well. Cool, so in edit mode, I'm just going to press O to get my proportional editing, and I'm just going to keep it set to smooth because it will work fine for what we're doing here. And just using G and then scrolling down on my scroll wheel, I'm just going to change the radius of effect, or the area of influence I should say. Just bring it down, just going to roughly match the profile of everything. As I said, nothing in this is going to be exact, it's all just going to be eyeballing things, because we are kind of modelling an organic shape here. It's somewhat hard surface, but compared to say the helmet or something like that, it's more of an organic shape. Outside here, I'm just going to select the outermost vert for here and GY, drag this back. And once again, just adjust the proportional editing just to try to match that profile a bit better. Might have to adjust one at the bottom here as well. Something like that. I'll just pull this forward just a smidge. So there we go. Now we've got like the rough shape of the eye socket, and I'm just going to relax those vertices as well just to smooth things out a bit. Cool. So I want to join the eye with the skull outline that we've done here, but there's a bit of a problem. In my modelling at least, my model does not match up perfectly with my reference image. I know if I turn off the subdiv it would be a little bit closer, but look, it doesn't perfectly match up and that's okay. But what we're going to do is I'm just going to apply the Shrinkwrap modifier here, so just Control A. And then I'm just going to bring this out just so that the skull that we've modelled, the outline, just sort of matches up a little bit better with the reference here. It's still not perfect because obviously it's conforming to the shape of our helmet. But I can see around here it roughly lines up. It's a little bit more extreme on the top and bottom, but that's good enough. Cool, so with that done, I'm just going to select the eye socket that we've just modelled, select the skull outline, Control J, and join them together. Cool. So the next thing I want us to do is, while we've got everything, I just want to go ahead and block out where the teeth are going to exist. So go ahead, I'm just going to Shift D and duplicate this bottom vert here. And oops, turn my proportional editing off, and it's going to drag it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to make like a very jagged set of verts here. It's going to look a bit stupid in wireframe mode, trust me, but it will work. So I'm just bringing this up roughly until where the gum line would sort of be between the teeth is the best way I can describe it. So just in there, I'm just going to turn off clipping for a second, E to extrude, and I'm just going to bring that vertex out here, just re-enable clipping. I'm just going to quickly look at this from the side view just to bring it out to be at the right level of depth. So somewhere around there should suit. And that should be good. So, and all I've done here is, as I said, so we're just going to make a zigzag line. This is just like at the apex of the curve of the tooth at the top here. That's all I'm going for because we're going to use some bevels later on to define the shape. But at the moment, just want to keep everything simple. So I'm going to extrude this one. Going to bring this down to roughly where the gum line is. And sorry if that's completely anatomically incorrect for the way I'm referencing these things. And extrude this up to the apex of the tooth. And I think that might be in an okay position. Oops. And I'm just eyeballing all of this, by the way. The reference for this is not fantastic. So I am just doing my best, just trying to make, sort of a bit of a linear progression of verts back along the skull shape here. That's all I'm doing. I've got no secret superpower for figuring this out. I'm just eyeballing it. And if I have it wrong, then I'll adjust it later on in the modelling process. So I'm just going to go with this little zigzag line for the time being. That's okay. It just gives us a rough block out of where the teeth will exist later on. So let's get into modelling the skull now. So I'm just going to go ahead, extrude this vertex out, put it into the middle. And I'm just going to leave it in the middle here because you can sort of see there's a bit of an indent here. So like you've got this brow shape going on. There's a bit of a profile along the nose bridge here. And then there's this up and along the side of the skull as well. So those are my main focus points for point of reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these two verts here. Shift and S and cursor to selected. And just using my circle select tool, I'm just going to select all of the verts between those points. Change my transform pivot point of the 3D cursor, E, and scale out. And I'm just looking at the rightmost vertex at the moment. And so I'm just going to leave it there because I can sort of see that it lines up with just a little bit of detail that runs along the side of the skull here. And then with that, I'm just going to manually adjust the other verts just to be on the outermost part of the brow. So just using G to move all these along. And this vert I do have a reference point for, so I can sort of see there's just a little bit of a curve in here. So I'm just going to try and line that up just along that edge. So somewhere about there looks fine to me. And then from the side view, I can see that that roughly lines up. I might just push this back just so that this is lining up, along that edge there. And I'll just push it across on the x-axis as well so it's in the right position. Select between these points, space that out. And for these ones at the front here, I might just push these out a bit. I might just bring that out. Might be a bit far. Push that in, push this out. So all I'm doing here is I'm just trying to make a nice looking curved shape. That's all I'm doing. So it's fairly flat, but it's got a bit of curve to it. It might be pushing it a little bit too much, in all honesty. But once we start to get more topology thrown in, I think it will be easier to ascertain some of the depths of everything. But at the moment, I'm just trying to make a nice curved sort of shape. That's all I'm going for. Cool. Alright, so let's just start to connect things up. So I'm just going to extrude that to the middle. And extrude this out, push that into the center as well. Oops, let's do that. And I'm just thinking, because I know we want a support loop around the outside of the eye socket here. And with the way I've got this topology set up, that's why I was adding in that edge loop. I can see that it's going to terminate into the center. So I'm actually going to go ahead and merge this at last. I know that's going to make a triangle, but we can fix that up in due time. And so let's just take some simple ones here, so we can make a quad there. And this vertex will extrude. This can be like the top of the nose here, so I'll just pull that out on the side view as well. So just fill that in. Cool. So yeah, we'll definitely need to come and adjust this, but we can do that all in good time. I'm just going to bring that out a bit as well, just add a little bit more depth to the bridge of the nose. Cool. So the next sort of detail that I'm looking at, I know we don't really have much going on here, it's just very, very basic blocking. Topology is not final. But the next detail that I'm interested in here is that there's sort of a bit of depth along here. So I want to focus on building out that shape. And so to do that, let's grab this vertex and let's just extrude it down. So let's place it somewhere around here. And the reason I'm placing it there, once again, I'll probably just leave this drawn in for a bit, because there's just this little bit of detail that seems to come up and around the cheekbone, right? So I'm going to put that there, and then with this vertex selected, I'll just even push it back a bit. With it selected, I'm just going to go select this vertex over here and just press F to fill in a face. And then select this vertex again, and I'm just going to go F. Sorry, I said a face. Fill in an edge, my bad. Just down to here. So I can just go and erase that grease pencil. And I might just adjust it over here just a little bit more, just to roughly block out the shape of this. And it's also handy because it roughly gives us the curvature that connects between this point, and that point. And then we can just add more topology later on and start to fill it out more. So let's extrude this vertex, and we'll just continue to build out the profile of the nose cavity here. So let's bring that in, just like that. So obviously we're going to need more topology in there to bring that out, but for the time being, let's just focus on keeping it simple. Just get the shape blocked out. I'm going to extrude this down just to the bottom of the cavity, pull it back a bit, and then I'll extrude it into the middle, pull this out. We've got some depth at the front, so I can see we can go ahead and make a face there just to start to give it some shape. And as I said, this looks absolutely ridiculous at the moment. It does not look serious in any capacity, but we will rectify that, I promise you. And so I can see that we're going to have a loop come through here, somewhere at least. So I'm going to go Control R, add in a vertex, just pull it out just to try to match the curvature of the shape here. I might actually pull this out forward a bit more because I think it might just match better. Cool, so we've got that. And then I can see we're going to want another loop running in through here. I'm going to Control R, add in a loop, and I'm just going to fill those in. So you can see it's almost just building itself, right? It's we've laid out some basic topology, but it's all we're doing is really just filling in the gaps. And speaking of, I'm just going to go Control R again, and I think that position's good. I'm just going to fill in the edge just to connect the rest of the teeth in. Cool. Alright, and we can probably add a little bit more curvature into this as well, so just Control R to add in another vertex. I'm just going to pull this up a bit. And I might pull this out on the front just to give it a little bit more curvature. And we can get another loop in there for sure. So I'll just bring that up. Use double tap G to do an edge slide. Fill that in. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to run a quick space operation here just to evenly distribute our topology. Cool. Alright, so we definitely need more topology in here, right? Because we're getting a very abrupt turn there. So I'm just going to go Control R, add in a loop. And just double tap G once again to do an edge slide. And now we're just curving that shape out a little bit more. I know we're going to get more topology in here later on. But this is also handy because we can sort of move this part of the nose up here instead. And then we can just run a space operation between those points. And we'll just do some adjustments here as well with these vertices, just so that the faces aren't so stretched out and they're a bit more square. Space operation there. And I might just pull these out just a little bit on the edges. Cool. Alright, so we're getting some basic shapes going on here. I think I might just actually pull these out just a little bit. And if you're struggling to sort of see the depth for everything, if you just go ahead and shade it to smooth and chuck on a subdivision, I'm just going to leave it at one level, you sort of get a better idea of the profile and shape that we're building out. I find it helps personally. Cool. So, what else can we do? We can Control R, we'll add in another vertex here. I'm just going to fill in a face like that. Add a vertex down the bottom there, and we can start to fill in some of these faces. Sorry, I just went and shaded smooth there because I could see that it filled in and it was on flat shading for some reason. And then let's start to build out this section here with proper topology. So I'm just going to select between these points, space that out. Probably don't need to do a relax operation just yet. So I'll just fill in that face. You can see if I do it again, we'll go there. And then we're going to need some more topology in here. So I'm just going to add a loop across the front here. Add in a loop there. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and hide these verts at the bottom because I'm just kind of finding them distracting. And I'm just going to add in one more vertex. Oops. And I'm just going to fill in those faces there. And now, I know I just unhid those, but that's alright. Now I'm just going to select that entire set of edges there, and I'm just going to go ahead and relax it. Ooh, actually, I might just relax it down instead of that last one. Relax there. Yeah, I think that gives a bit of a nicer shape. And so now you see we're getting a bit of depth going on here. And I can also see that this is sort of caved in a bit for where we've placed the vert. So as I said, it doesn't really matter where we place those at the start because we can always just come in and edit them afterwards. So I'm just going to push that out on the normal Z axis just a little bit there. So we just need another 2 loops through here. So I'm just going to go Control R, cut in 2 loops. And we can fill that in. So now we've got more of the teeth connected. And once again, I can see that these are in poor position. So once again, just using the normal Z axes, I'm just going to level these out a bit. Bring this out a bit as well. So let's go and address this because this isn't great. It was fine for a starting point. So I'm just going to go ahead, dissolve that edge, subdivide this. And we can just cut this in. And I might just actually relax all of that just so we get more of a circular eye shape there. And it's also fixed up our triangle problem. Still got this one here, but I'm not too concerned about it. And you'll see we're starting to make that nice support loop around our eye socket. And so on that note, let's focus our attention onto this bit of detail that runs along here. Just get rid of that drawing. So, what I'm going to do is extrude this down to continue along that detail. I might actually even push this along the y-axis a bit. Just bring it out to there. And I might bring this more into the center. And then I'm just going to fill in an edge between these 2 verts here, just so we can build out some of that detail. I'm just going to go and connect this together to fill it in. And we can probably make some additional adjustments here just to get more of an organic curved sort of look to it. And so with that, what we're going to do is we're just going to select this topmost vert. I'm just going to E to extrude, just bring it roughly up to the top of where that detail ends, and then push it in on the Y so that we match the same profile. I'm going to go Control R again and just give it a little bit more curvature. Just on the X and Y, push it in and out a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're kind of going to make a bit of a hard surface object detail here, so to speak. I'm just going to select between the bottom and the second last vert here, E to extrude. I'm going to pull it out on the Y a bit. I'm not even using the reference here, I'm just eyeballing a detail that looks good. Pull it out on the Y a bit, push it in on the X. Just give it a bit of depth there. And you can see the face orientation coming into handy there, so I'm just going to flip that face around, shade it smooth. And then we're just going to fill a triangle in at the end here. And don't worry, yes, I know triangles are like the be-all of evil, but it's actually going to be just fine in this instance. And so let's start to fill this in. So I'm just going to select the topmost vert and this vert over here because they seem to be nicely positioned to one another. So fill that in. Another face there. And then I can kind of see we're running out of topology, so let's just go ahead, let's fill in that face there. We could probably get another face there, and then what we've got, two more verts in the middle here and only one vert on this side, so I'm just going to go Control R, add in another vertex, space these out, and we can fill all that up. Cool. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to go and mark these edges with creases. Not because we want to make a hard surface object, but just because it'll just help us visualize where that detail is and the way it's sort of affecting the mesh. So if I bump that up, looks like a hard surface object, but we are going to actually do a high poly sculpt of this skull afterwards, so it's not going to be of too much concern. And once again, just speaking about organic, I'm just going to go ahead, sorry you can't see that, select these four edges, and I'm just going to relax those just to smooth that out a bit. And this one's pretty much okay. I'm just going to leave that as is. Cool, and now we can just worry about trying to resolve this area. So I'm just going to select between these verts, connect those, add in a vertex. And I know that this needs to connect together, right, because we need to build out this internal loop here. So I'm actually going to add that support loop in because I know we're going to need it. And then we've just got to figure out how to resolve the rest of this. So I'm just going to go Control R, add in another vertex. Same thing I did at the bottom, just going to fill that in there. It's just going to simplify things for us, because then we could always just go ahead and select things like that, or fill things in like that, sorry. Another face there, and then Control R to add in a final loop, and I can just see that we can just fill those in. And that pretty well rounds out that section of the topology. The only other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull some of these out a bit. So I'm just going to grab this, pull it out on the y-axis, just to add a little bit more depth to it on the sides here. Actually, for this one, I might select down to there and pull that out. And then just even for these two, select these verts here and pull these out a bit, just so it rounds out a little bit nicer. And I can just see how that looks with the subdiv. Yeah, so on this one I might even just be a little bit more aggressive with it, pull it out just a little bit more. Same with this. And same with this. Yeah, I think that looks better. So we're going to use a little trick that I showed off as an alternative in my Space Marine shoulder modelling challenge. And hopefully I can do a better job of explaining exactly why I like the process I showed as the second example, as it's going to come into practice here. So let's just select this topmost vert here. Okay, E to extrude and pull it in on the X just until it clips in the middle. And just using the side reference, I'm just going to pull it out on the Y so it matches the profile of the skull there. Cool. At the bottom here, so I'm just going to count the amount of verts between this vert and this vertex, sorry. So I can see there's three vertexes, or verts here, sorry. So let's just go ahead and Control R to cut in a vertex on this edge. I'm just going to pull it out to roughly match the curvature as it is below, so just do that. Add in another vertex, just pull it out, once again, just trying to match the curvature. And then I'll just do one final one, pull it out a bit, just roughly trying to make a nice curve there again. And I'm just going to go ahead and relax these just to average out that curve that I've done there, because I've just done it by hand. Then selecting between these two verts, I'm going to go F to fill in an edge, Control R to add a vertex, and then I'm just going to drag this out just somewhere around here, just to, I can sort of see where the subdivision line is, so it's doing something like that, so I'm guessing that's a good position. So what we're going to do, and this probably seems very counterintuitive, is we're going to fill in a triangle at the top here. And the reason we're doing that is because now we can sort of visualize this shape as being more of a square, right? And so if we're trying to fill in a square, right, we need to have even amounts of vertices on each of the edges, okay? So here we've got 4 verts, so that will need to match to 4 verts at the top here. And on this side, we also have 4 verts, which needs to match to 4 verts on this side over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Control R, and I'm just going to go 4, just to add in 4 extra verts along this edge. Select between these points, I'm just going to go space, and that's going to provide a horrible result. So I'm just going to go through and manually clean up these positions just to match the outline of the skull shape here. Bring that in, and just bring that in a little bit closer. And once again, just to average that out, I'm just going to relax it, just to make it a little bit neater. And I'm just going to Alt-N and flip the normals on that face. And so, cool. So now we have the correct amount of verts here to connect to these verts over here. We just need to do the same for the top edge. So I'm just going to go Control R and 4 once again, because now we have 4 verts along here to connect to the 4 verts down here. So I'm just going to select this boundary of verts here, Shift D and P to remove by selection. I'm just going to do this because I've had people report that grid fill gets a bit funny in its operation sometimes. I just know that this will make it work consistently. So just with this separated set of verts, I'm just going to go grid fill, and now we get a nice perfect fill. Just going to shift and select the original object, Control J, tab back into edit mode, select everything, and by distance to remove the doubles at the top here. And I'm just going to go shade smooth as well. So we need to clean up this big end gun at the top here because it's not going to resolve nicely for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to go face select mode. I'm going to select all these top faces here. Shift D, P, remove by selection. And on the one that we've just removed, the top part of the skull that we've removed, I'm just going to go F2 and I'm just going to rename this _skull_shrink. And I'm just going to move that to our Shrinkwraps collection. Then on the main version of the model, I'm going to select the same area, right, just the top here. Go to our data panel, add a new vertex group and assign it, and we can call this shrink if you want, just to contextualize it. Now modifiers, I'm going to add a new modifier, get a Shrinkwrap modifier. I'm going to set the target to the skull shrink, and the vertex group, I'm going to use the shrink vertex group. And at the moment, it doesn't really look like anything's changed. But we're just going to clean up the topology at the top here. So I'm just going to use K for the knife tool and C just to make straight cuts. So I'm going to do 2 along there and then 1 along here. And so now this is all quad based, right? Even this one here, that's also a quad. And so what we're going to do, just to make it easier, I'm just going to select this vertex group and Shift H to isolate it all. Going to select 1, 2, 3. So I'm just stopping before this edge here because it doesn't continue all the way to the back. And I'm just going to space and relax those. Once again, ignoring selecting this one here, I'm just going to select the 2 loops at the back here, space and relax. And so now we just have an absolute mess of topology. And just quickly, I'm just going to enable the shrink wrap so that it's visible on our topology. I'm going to go to vertex select mode, alt select the bottom row of verts, alt shift and select the outside, Control I, Control V, smooth our verts. And just change the repeat up to 100, and now you'll notice we've just got very nice and evenly spaced quads, and we've got a nice circular shape going. So now we can just apply that shrink wrap, unhide everything else, and you'll notice that that's just helped resolve the top part of our skull here. And if you have any sort of pinching in the middle, you can always go ahead and once we apply the mirror modifier, we can just go through and relax all of the horizontal facing edges just to remove any sort of pinching that you might get in the middle there. In this case, I seem to have gotten away scot-free with it, which is lucky. But yes, I do know that that can occur. And now it becomes pretty easy to go ahead and fill in the rest of the faces here. So I'm just going to select between these verts and just press F, fill these in. I'm just going to stop before this final one because we need to add in an extra loop cut here. And then we can just fill that in. Nice. So, let's just have a look at the shape of everything here. So, I don't feel like the brow is very visible. We've got the topology for it, but I just don't feel like it's coming through that well. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this vert all the way to this one. I'm just sort of going to pull this out a bit just to give just a bit of the brow identity there. And then I'm not loving how far, I feel like this skull's got a very big forehead. So I'm just going to go ahead and don't want to select those. Oops, circle select's too big. Go select roughly these faces, so I don't want anything touching a leading edge or the back edges. And I'm just going to go Alt S and just sort of shrink this in a bit. Just like that. Cool. And I might just double down and I might select these edges and just pull these back just to accentuate the brow just a little bit more. Cool. I think that's looking just a little bit better. And even this little divot here, I might actually just push that further in. Same as this part of the nose bridge, might just push that in as well. Cool, so this is looking pretty good. I might just push these across just to sort of narrow up the bridge of the nose there. And before we go on to fill the eyes and the nose socket, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and bevel out the tops of the teeth here. So Control Shift and B. And it looks like a bit of a mess, and that's because it is. So we'll just roughly get a shape going there. I'm just going to Alt Shift select the bottom row of verts there, and just Control X to dissolve them. And so we've got an absolute mess here, but I'll show you something really cool we can do. So just using the knife tool, we can just go ahead and we can cut in a quad, because that is a quad. It doesn't look nice, but it is. And we can do another one there. And then we can do another one here. Cool. So these may not be nice looking quads by any capacity, but the cool thing is that it actually works really well for the shape of the skull, where you sort of get, I don't know how you call it, but like these creased lines running up from where the teeth are. So normal topology, I'd say terrible idea, but in this instance, it actually works to our benefit, so we're just going to go with it. And I'm also just going to go ahead and delete these bottom two vertices because we don't need them anymore. And I might just go and space these out. Oh, maybe not. I might just do some edge sliding here just to sort of put them a little bit more into the centre. Better. And what we can do here is we can just sort of make these match the profile of the teeth a bit better. So I'm just literally moving them and scaling them. So once again, I'm not doing anything by exact measures or anything. Just eyeballing it all. Might even just rotate that one a bit. So, yeah, there we go. That's looking pretty good. We've got some nice detail and profile going on the skull here. And just since I've got the highest subdiv on now, I might just actually bring that bridge out just a little bit more. Yep, the brow's looking nice. Just with this, I might... You can see that that's probably not in a great position. I might just pull that out a little bit on the Y. But I think I'm just going to grab the two inner curves here, and I might just pull these in on the X just a little bit, just to give a little bit more depth to the curve there. Yeah, just detail the cheekbones a little bit more. And just at the end here, I'm just going to go ahead and do a relax operation here, just because it doesn't look too nice. Might even just pull that up a little bit and just do a relax around the side there just to distribute them a little bit more. Yeah, that looks better. And so let's just go ahead and let's just fill in the final gaps here that we've got, so the eye sockets and the nose. So I'm just going to select this. I'm just going to check. So I've got 18 verts here. Say you had 17 or 19 or something like that. An easy solution is just go ahead and cut in a loop in the middle here at the nose bridge, because it will be the least intrusive sort of means of adding in a little bit of extra topology. But you just want to make sure that you've got an even amount of verts for your eye socket here. And then if you go ahead, we can use a grid fill here. I'm going to turn off the subdivision to make this easier to see. And I'm just going to adjust this just to get a nice sort of grid shape going. So it doesn't need to be perfectly the same as mine. I'm just trying to get a nice cross-section going through the eye socket here, so I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to go Shift and H just to isolate it, And then I'm just going to select this middle edge, press O to get my proportional editing, G and Y, and I'm just going to bring it down a bit because I don't want to move the outermost edges if I don't need to. Just bring it in a bit just to give it a bit of depth. And so now we've got that going on for us, and this is a bit jagged at the moment for my liking. But what we'll do is we'll just go select all these, F just to fill in the face. I'm going to go I and press B to insert it to the bounds. And go scale Y 0. Whoops, turn proportional editing off, scale Y 0. And I'm just going to give it a bit of a rotation around the X-axis as well. And just push this back in on the Y, just to give it some depth. And I might just push it on the X as well. Something like that. Cool. And also, from the skulls I showed you at the start, not a single one of my methods has been the exact same. I've tried to use the same general principles for everything, but not one method has been identical to the other. So this is different from the last one I did. So if you get a different result, that's what I was trying to say at the start. It doesn't matter. It will be fine. It will be all good. But what I do want to do is I do want a support loop around the nose cavity here. So I'm actually just going to use K to just get a knife tool going. And I'm just going to cut just very roughly around the shape of our nose here. And then at these triangles, I'm just going to merge at center. Just like that. And then this triangle here, I'm just going to go merge at last. And that fixes everything up for us. I can just do a little bit of edge sliding here, just to fix that position. And I'll go select the new loop, G, G, E, and F, and just make it conform a little bit better. And then when we have the subdiv on it, we'll just give a little bit more support, a little bit more topology. And I might even just push this back just a little bit as well. I might actually just put a crease, just a very, very subtle crease on the eye socket and the nose. Shift E, I'm just going to go 0.33 just to make it stand out a little bit more. You'll see it better on the higher subdiv level, just to make it stand out just a teeny little bit more. But once you're happy with it, what I want you to do is apply the mirror modifier. And so now just everything's there, and you can't make any more symmetrical additions, unfortunately. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and adjust some of the positions of the teeth here, just to add in a little bit of that organic and asymmetric sort of design to the skull here. As I said, if you don't want to, you can just leave the mirror modifier on, and you can just do it as a completely mirrored mesh. I just think this looks just a little bit nicer, just adds to the authenticity of what it is we're doing. And I might just move this down and across a bit. Once again, I'm just eyeballing everything. There's no exact method for what I'm doing, just guessing. I'm going to say that's good. So I'm just going to go ahead and select this bottom roll verts. I'm going to go E to extrude, just drag this down a little bit. Like this, and then I'm going to go Alt and S and just push it all in a bit. Say about that much. And then to make this look a little bit nicer, I'm just going to go ahead and select all of these top edges. Oops. And Shift E, I'm just going to go 0.55 just to crease them up a bit, make it a little bit more visible. And I'm also going to do it for the bottom parts here. Once again, I don't know what the correct reference is, but just whatever the gums are. I know gums aren't a part of your skull, but whatever that is. Cool. Alright. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go Control R. We're going to cut a loop through the middle here. And then press P, separate by selection. And then we're just going to tab out of edit mode. And we can go into the new separated object. And then what we can do is we can just start to extrude down each vertex and just line it up roughly with the teeth. So I'm just going to say there. This one can extrude down to here. Just going to go F to fill in an edge between the two, Control R to add in a loop, and I'm just going to roughly try to match the profile of the tooth. So something about there. Control Shift and B, just to add in a little bit more geo. And then you can see we can quite easily fill in the face for the teeth. So I'm just going to repeat that, so I'm just going to grab this vertex, extrude it down to somewhere around here. Fill in an edge, Control R, bring it down to match the profile, Control Shift and B, and fill in the faces again. This one we're missing a vertex down the bottom here, so I'm just going to go E and extrude this down. Just roughly match that profile. Fill on a face here, Control R. Once again, just match this up. This is a bit of a sharper tooth, so I'm just going to bring that down further. Control Shift and B. Fill those in. And hopefully you can see what this is getting at. It's very simple and it's very rudimentary, but I promise we're going to make it work. And so same here, pull this down. Fill all those faces in. Extrude this one down. And this one sort of looks like it's a bit skewed, so I'm just going to bring it down there. Control Shift and B. Something like that. And then same as the other one on the outside, we're sort of missing a vertex, so I'll just bring that down. And Control Shift and B once more. Put that to more of a point. And now I've got this, and that's oriented the wrong way. Alt N and flip that. Cool, so now we have this, and frankly it looks pretty terrible. But don't worry, we are going to fix this. So, what I want to do for the teeth on the ends, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select these edges here, and I'm just going to go relax, just to round it out a little bit more. I might even just relax that once as well, just to make it a little bit more straight. So just do the same here. I might just do that twice, and then just round that out. Cool. Alright, so we want to crease up the gaps of the teeth here, so I'm just going to go Shift E 0.55. And you can see that adds a little bit more detail, which is cool, but nothing extreme so far. What I want you to do, let's go select the bottom vertex of all the creased edges. I'm just going to use Alt S, and we're just going to push these in just an arbitrary amount, just until you think they've got enough depth. So I'm just going to go somewhere like that. I think that looks good. And then selecting the edges next to them. So this one, I'm just going to go double tap G, just slide it in. And same for the one on the right of it, slide it in, just to crease this up a bit more. And so I don't think Alt S actually moved this back all too much, so I'm just going to use the normal axes of the edge. I'm just going to push it in. Oops, actually, sorry, I don't want to do it for the whole edge, just for the vert. Push this in just to give it some more depth. And you can sort of see, if I crank up the subdivisions here, you can sort of see the effect that we're getting with the teeth here now, right? So I'm just going to go repeat that process for all of these. So just double tap G, slide it in. It doesn't need to be too close, just somewhere just a little bit, just close enough to add a little bit more depth to it. So double tap G, drag these in. And same on this one. This one here. And bring that one in as well. Cool. Alright, so I reckon that looks pretty good. I might just select all these and I'll just go Alt S because I already adjusted the one on the other side. Pull those in a little bit more. And now we're getting some better looking teeth. You might be wondering though, one thing looks a little bit off about it at the moment, and that is the fact that there's no curvature to the teeth, so they're just sitting completely flat, straight front down. So if we just go select all the bottom verts here, just using the global transform, you just pull them back in on the Y a bit, just so it actually conforms to the shape of the skull a bit better. And then we get something that looks more like this. And that's sort of adjusted some of the vertex positions as well, but we can adjust that in a bit. I just want to leave the top row of verts mostly untouched, so it's easier to join them back together. But just one final thing I want to do, let's just go Control R, and we'll add a loop along the front of everything. And then just in edge select mode, I'm just going to select the middle two or singular edge of each tooth. And I'm just going to use Alt S just to give them a little bit of curvature. It'll also help with the indentation here at the front. Just make the teeth look a little bit more teethy. Cool, so let's come back to the skull here, and let's delete the verts at the very end there. And the reason we want that, because remember we extracted this middle edge. So if we grab the teeth, shift select the skull object and Control J, we can go ahead and go merge by distance, so that's removed 15 verts, and that just be these ones at the top here that are all connecting right, as well as the ones at the bottom here. And so then all we can do is we can just go ahead and we can just start to merge some of these verts back together. So bring that one down, merge it last, merge it last. And it sort of distorts the profile and shape here a little bit, but if I just go and check on the subdiv, it's not too bad. It probably looks worse than it is, but if we go and crease up this inner edge, it's not going to look great for everything just now because it's not all connected. But you'll see it works well enough. We can adjust the vertex positions here to get rid of that pinching on the outside. But let's just continue to connect all these up, and then we can worry about all that in a second. Let's merge all these at last. That one there, this one here, and that one can go there. Cool, and didn't look like it creased everything up on the inside here, so Shift A 0.55 just to crease that up. And if you want just to adjust some of these around the top here, you can always just select them and relax them just to ease the positions out a little bit. Might just help with some things later down the track, especially when we go to, because as I've already alluded to, we do want to go and do a high poly sculpt to this because we don't want the skull to just be, you know, a hard surface object. We want it to be a little bit more organic and have a little bit more detail to the normal map. And then so let's just go ahead and adjust. Let's actually just grab all of these edges, sorry. All of these. And I might just do another Alt-S operation and just push these in just a little bit further. So actually that might be a bit too intense. I might just deselect the bottom two. I might just select this topmost edge. Alt-S. Bring that in. Yeah, that's better. Cool, alright. And then the last thing I'm going to do here, just because I think the relax operation has sort of just raised some of these areas up a little bit, I'm just going to go ahead, just select the tops, sort of drag them down just so it doesn't look like they've got like gingivitis or something like that. It looks like they've got a receding gum line. It doesn't look that intimidating for the type of design we're going for. And so, yeah, there we go. That's most of it. Now we just need to work on filling out the back and connecting it up with the helmet. Well, just having it sit above the helmet so it looks like it's connected. And so to get the final last bit of this all connected up, or at least just so that just looks a little bit out of space, just so it looks like it's sort of connected to the helmet, let's just Alt and select the outermost verts or edges of the model here. So just all of these. And, oops, I probably need to adjust that on this side as well. Just going to reselect all of those. I don't know why I've got that one vertex at the back that is a little bit askew, but anyway. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to go E and extrude. I'm just going to push this all back on the Y. And then what I should actually do is crease up this edge here, because I can sort of see that this is creased up on the actual model. There's like, you can see on the side reference here that there's like a little bit going on here. So I'm just going to select all these. I'm going to Shift E 0.55, just crease that up just a little bit. Cool. And what I'm going to do with this is we're going to add in another vertex group. So I'm just going to go to our data. I'm just going to get rid of that shrink vertex group, add a new one, assign. I'm just going to leave this one called as group. And we'll get a Shrinkwrap modifier. We'll shrink these back verts to the helmet. At the moment, you'll see everything has been shrunk. We'll just select the group vertex group. And then what I'm going to do is, with the vertex group still selected, I'm just going to go Control I. I should do that in vertex mode actually. So select all these back ones, Control I to invert the selection. And I just don't want this to be massive at the back here, so I'm just sort of going to push the skull in a little bit. Just so it's only like a little bit of depth. Like so. And there you have it. So now it's taken a while, but we've finally got the skull ornament on our helmet here, which looks very, very nice. So in the next tutorial that I'll be doing, we'll be doing a bit of a sculpting pass on this, just to add in a little bit more detail, so that we've got a nicer normal bake for the texturing process. But there you go. And as I said, look, if you're not totally stoked with the way that this has turned out, in all honesty, I'm not actually stoked with the way the nose cavity on mine has turned out here, so I might need to go and just do a little bit of refinement possibly add in some topology or just do some pushing and pulling of the the verts around here, whatever. But it just, for my liking, it looks a little bit too round. But yes, look, if it's not completely to your liking, don't worry. As I said at the start, I've actually done this several times already. This just happened to be the version that I showed you for the tutorial. But, feel free to go and do it again, iterate, learn, do something different next time. And, yeah, I'm sure you'll get there in the end. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Sorry it's taken me so long to get to doing this. And I will see you all in the next one.